"So what happened?" Jessica asked. "I have no idea," Ethan answered. "Everything was going well, but as soon as things got too serious, she broke up with me." "Wow! That's usually what guys do," Michael joked. "That's right," said Susan, Michael's friend. The four of them were at the pool hall next door to Ethan's apartment building. Ethan and Michael played pool together while Jessica and Susan sat watching them play and keeping the conversation going. They had taken Ethan with them to make him feel better after his last girlfriend dumped him. It happened so often that Ethan seemed to be constantly unlucky with women. Ethan was kind of normal. He was a decent guy with a good job who was always very polite to people and had a great sense of humor. He was also a very good-looking 27-year-old guy, tall with short brown hair. He wasn't perfect, but he was much more serious than some of his friends who still acted like frat boys at their age. And it wasn't that he had bad taste in women. All the women he'd dated had been normal, no cockiness or cockroaches in their heads. Nothing about them warned his friends or family that they weren't right for him in any way. "Did Rachel say anything to you, ladies?" Michael asked both women. Jessica and Susan looked at each other strangely before turning to the guys again. "What do you mean?" Jessica asked somewhat nervously. "You both talked to her. She must have said something." "Yes, as a matter of fact, you ladies have talked to several of my previous girlfriends," Ethan said. "They must have said something, had something in common to indicate why this keeps happening to me." The two ladies thought about it for a moment. "I have no idea," Jessica replied. "Neither do I," Susan said, looking very worried. Ethan and Michael continued to play pool, and eventually found a way to change the subject to a variety of other things. Anything to distract Ethan from his failed love life. The girls left alone to play the machines. The next day, Ethan and Michael were alone, waiting for the bus at the bus stop after work. "I got some bad news for you, bro," Michael began. "I think I have an idea why Rachel broke up with you. In fact, it might explain why it keeps happening to you." "Really? What's the big deal?" Ethan asked. "I thought there was something wrong with the way Susan and Jessica acted when we asked them if any of your exes had told them anything you should know about, and they didn't seem sincere about not knowing anything. So when I got home with Susan, I questioned her about it, and she finally confessed. And well..." Michael fell silent, not knowing how to finish what he was trying to say. "Come on, what's the matter?" Ethan demanded an answer. "You're a bad kisser," he blurted out. "And I don't mean simple kissing. You're terrible at kissing women." Ethan was speechless. He was sure there had been some kind of mistake. "That can't be true," Ethan said. "I've slept with some of these women. If I wasn't a good kisser, how would I get them into bed?" "I asked Susan the same thing," Michael replied. "According to some of them, they just wanted to get to sex faster. You're obviously very good in bed, so there's still something positive in all this." It took a while before Ethan said anything else, as he was still stunned by this revelation. "It can't be true," Ethan said. Rachel described it to Susan as a squid attack. "Oh my God," Ethan said, shrinking back. "That sounds fucked up." "And that woman you dated last year, Cindy, told her it was so bad she thought she was experiencing her own Me Too moment." "Okay, I get it. You can stop," Ethan pleaded. "But still, is that really a good reason for them to break up with me?" "Again, I asked Susan the same thing," Michael said. "According to her, it wasn't the reason for all the breakups. Some of them were different, and don't forget that you broke up with some of them, too. But some of those women who made that statement felt it was very important. Sex and a good relationship is great, but apparently they can't get over the fact that you're a bad kisser." "Damn," was all Ethan could say. "Why didn't they say anything to me?" "I have no idea. You'd think someone would have said something by now. It would have saved you a lot of trouble if they had." When Ethan got home, he decided to make some calls to some of his exes. They were pretty awkward conversations, but he needed to talk to them about it. Some of these women were very happy to hear from him and helped him ask them about his kissing technique. Unfortunately, they all confirmed that it was true and said he was a terrible kisser, but assured him that he was still great in bed, which made Ethan feel a little better. Some of them said that despite his bad kissing style, it wasn't the reason why they broke up, but others confirmed that it was definitely the main reason. These ladies said that they can't imagine having a long-term relationship with someone who can't kiss them properly. He also asked them why they just didn't tell him about it. Most of them said they didn't want to hurt his feelings about it and thought he probably would have felt insulted. This only made Ethan angrier about the situation because if any of them had just told him the truth, he would have done something about it a long time ago. There was only one person left who could shed more light on the subject, his longtime girlfriend, Jessica. Although they had briefly dated in college and never slept together, they had kissed a few times. He couldn't see any of the ex-girlfriends he'd called in person, but he could see Jessica, who could probably give him more insight into the situation. He arrived at her house the evening after dinner, surprising her with his unannounced visit. When she opened the door for him, she greeted him with a wide smile and let him inside. She led him into the kitchen, where she brought them both a beer each. It wasn't too late that night, but Jessica looked like she was ready to go to bed, judging by the tank top and pajama shorts she was wearing. Ethan couldn't help but think about how sexy she looked at that moment. He'd always thought she was sexy. She had dark red hair, she was only a few inches shorter than him, and she had a slender body with a large bust that was bigger than a C-size. As much as he enjoyed looking at her, he wasn't just there to stare at her. He was there to get some answers. "So, am I a bad kisser?" Ethan asked, deciding to go straight to the reason he was there. "Oh, shit, who told you that?" Jessica asked. "So, you felt the same way?" he asked. "And you probably knew that from what some of my exes told you, right?" "I'm sorry," she said sadly. "I wanted to tell you, but I didn't think you'd be a bad kisser for so long. I figured you'd get better eventually. I had no idea it would only get worse." "It's going to get worse?" Ethan snapped at her. Jessica told him that while she hadn't heard it from every woman Michael had dated, from those of them who had brought it up, their description of his kissing style sounded worse and worse with each person. "Why didn't anyone ever tell me about it?" he asked. "Why didn't you tell me when we were dating in college?" She replied, "I didn't want to hurt your feelings, and I didn't think it would take you this long to figure it out. I was hoping one of the other women had already told you that. You date a lot of women. I'm surprised no one has said anything about it." A long silence hung between them as they drank their beer. "They tell me you're great in bed if it makes you feel better," she told him. "It helps a little," he replied. "But still, I'd like to know the truth. I've missed out on so many good relationships because of it." "I have an idea," she started to say. "Kiss me the way you like to kiss women straight." "What?" "Let me get an idea of how you kiss now. We've met before, and this is just a test. It won't be that weird." Ethan agreed to the test. At least he could get an idea of his kissing techniques. They set down their beers and moved closer to each other. There was a moment of awkwardness between them because it had been so long since they had done this, and now they were just good friends. When they were ready, Ethan leaned in and kissed her. He didn't try to change anything about how he kissed a woman, because he wanted an honest opinion on how he was currently doing it. After about 30 seconds, they let go of each other, and he saw the horrified expression on Jessica's face. "Oh my God, was it that bad?" Ethan asked. "I'll be honest with you, it made me want to cry," she told him. "Really? I don't know how you did it, but you've really gotten worse since college," she said. "I'm really sorry." They finished their beers, and he made an excuse to go home. She apologized again for not telling him, and he said it was okay, though he still felt a little hurt by her silence. Jessica walked him to the door, but before he did, he had to ask her something that suddenly occurred to him. "I have one last thing to ask," he began to say. "Was that the reason you broke up with me back in college?" "Oh no, I assure you that's not the main reason," she assured him. "If you remember, we were so busy with classes and our internships that we barely had time to see each other." "At least you calmed me down," Ethan said, feeling a little relieved about that. They said goodbye, and Ethan walked down the hall to the elevator. Jessica closed the door and breathed a sigh of relief. While there was some truth to what she had told him about why they had broken up, she had lied that the main reason was that he was a terrible kisser. She also felt bad about having to tell him about his problem at some point in their friendship. Had she told him from the beginning, or at least a little earlier, She felt Ethan would have had a much better relationship by now. Over the next few months, Ethan dated 3 more women, and each of those relationships didn't last long. When he asked the women why they had broken up, they came up with a number of excuses that didn't seem sincere to him. Finally, he asked the 3rd one he called if it was because of the way he kissed her. She had to admit that was definitely the reason they broke up. He tried to improve his kissing skills using whatever he could read about it online, or from the YouTube videos he could find on the subject. He tried to apply what he learned to the next couple of women he dated, but it didn't work. He wanted to ask if any of them could show him how they liked being kissed, but he was too embarrassed to ask something like that. For the next month, after the whole mess, he pretty much gave up on dating. He had several opportunities to ask out several women, some of whom were very interested in him, but he never took that step. Jessica noticed how he was turning down women left and right. She didn't really understand the reason for it, but she kind of had an idea about it. She had always thought of Ethan as a big ladies' man because of the way he actively dated and slept with women. She had always been impressed with how well he got along with women. Now it was hard for her to see him that way. Finally, one night at the pool hall, Jessica had to talk to him about it when she saw him reject the advances of Maria, the very attractive new female bartender that all the other customers fawned over. She was so hot that Jessica and Susan had joked that even though they weren't bisexual in the slightest, they would still screw her in a heartbeat. Maria had been turning down men left and right since she'd been working there, but Ethan was the only one she'd openly flirted with. But Ethan kept fooling around next to her, pretending he couldn't see how interested she was in him. "What the hell are you doing?" Jessica asked him. "She's clearly in love with you, and you know it." They were sitting at a table at the far end of the pool hall, drinking beer and waiting for Michael and Susan to arrive. "You know why," Ethan said. "We'll meet for a little while, and then she'll dump me because I'm a bad kisser." "So that's it then? You're just going to stop dating everyone?" "I'm not giving up. I'm just taking a break until I deal with this shit," he told her. Jessica couldn't take it anymore. She couldn't see her friend like this. She had an idea that she had been putting off for a while but didn't dare to pursue it. But after seeing him say no to someone he clearly enjoyed being with, she decided she finally had to go along with the idea. "Okay, you're coming with me," she commanded. She grabbed his arm, forced him up from his chair, and dragged him towards the front door. "Where are we going?" he asked. "Let's go," she replied. "I'll explain everything to you when we get there." Jessica was lucky that Ethan lived next door to the pool hall, so she didn't have to walk far. Ethan kept asking her what she wanted him to do at his apartment, but she remained silent the whole way. When they got to his place, she made him sit down on the couch and sat next to him herself. Jessica began to speak. "You can't just wait until you figure things out, as you put it, to go back to dating. So I've decided that I'm going to give you kissing lessons." "Are you serious?" "I'm very serious," she replied. "I'm perfect for this. You're already comfortable with me. I already have an idea of how bad you are at kissing, and I'm a school teacher, so I know how to handle difficult students." Ethan didn't like the thought of being compared to a troubled high schooler, but he let it pass. "I'm not sure about that," he told her. "With my help, I can improve you at kissing and get you ready for when you finally ask Maria out." Ethan thought about it for a moment. "That's highly unusual," he replied. "But we are not just talking about kissing on the lips. We are talking about deep kissing." "I understand. Maybe you don't understand. That would include me putting my hands on your body," he told her. "Would you mind if I felt you up?" "I've had plenty of guys grope me before," she told him. "So, I have a good idea of how a woman should feel, and I don't mind letting you grope me during these lessons." Ethan was stunned. He never thought he would find himself in this situation. But she was right. He couldn't just wait to figure things out on his own. He needed help, and Jessica might be the only one who could help him. Plus, he really wanted to ask Maria out, and he needed to work on his kisses quickly so he could ask her before she turned him down and moved on to the next guy. "Okay, let's do this," he said. "I'm not going to stall. This is a problem that needs to be dealt with right away." "Great. Jessica said with a wide smile. Let's start right now. What, right now? Yes, she replied. Why did you think I brought you here to your house, dumbass? If you call me stupid, I'm not going to be in the mood, he told her. Just shut up and kiss me already. Ethan leaned closer to Jessica's face, closed his eyes, and pressed his lips to hers. He waited a while before sliding his tongue into her mouth, at which point she pushed him away and looked up at him with a look of horror on her face. This is going to be harder than I thought, she said. How bad was it? It was horrible, she screamed. For a moment you made me ashamed to be a woman. Ethan was extremely hurt by this statement. Would you mind embellishing the situation a little? If we're going to do this right, I have to be completely honest with you. She started to tell him all about how all he was doing was pressing his lips very hard against hers and moving them too much, sticking his tongue out a little bit, which was very strange. And when he tried to put his tongue in her mouth, he just stuck it all in, like he was using his tongue to attack her mouth. You have to be gentle when kissing a woman on the lips. Gently touch her lips and move them slightly. Try to follow the way the woman you're kissing does when she kisses you back. I thought it was okay, Ethan said. No, it's not, she assured him. And when you put your tongue in a girl's mouth, do the same thing she would do with your tongue. Slowly insert it a little at a time, massage your tongue against her tongue and move it a little in a circular motion. Don't twist it there. Ethan was surprised that there was so much to say about kissing a woman. He really thought he was doing a good job, but that wasn't what his teacher said. I know you'll do better this time, she said. Let's try again, but for now let's skip the tongue and focus only on our lips. Over the next hour, Ethan tried several times to kiss Jessica properly. Each time she had something to say about what he was doing wrong. By the end of that hour, she recognized that he was getting better, but he still had a lot to improve on. Jessica noticed that Susan was flooding her phone with messages, wondering where Ethan had gone. They both agreed to end it there and continue tomorrow night. Am I doing any better? Ethan asked. Better, but we have so much to do, she replied. They met Michael and Susan in the billiard room where drinks were prepared for them, and Michael had a pool table ready. This time they played in teams, men against women, with the men, of course, letting the women win to make them happy. Susan was a good pool player, but Jessica was just awful. Ethan had a nice thrill knowing that at least he could say he was better than her at something else. The next night, Jessica checked in as they had planned and went straight home. We'll use a technique that involves using some form of punishment as a means of changing behavioral traits for a more positive outcome, Jessica replied. What kind of punishment do you mean? With those words, Jessica slapped him hard across the face. What the hell? Ethan exclaimed. For every time you do something wrong, I'm going to punch you in the face, she told him. Under the circumstances, I think that's our only option. I think there may be a better way to motivate me. Do you want to spend the next year learning how to kiss a woman, or do you want to hurry up so you can have sex again? Ethan calmed down and thought for a moment, and couldn't escape the thought that she was right. He wouldn't like this method at all, but she had made her point. Okay, I'll go along with this method, he told her. They repeated everything she had taught him, and he tried to kiss her again. He did his best to be more successful that time because he could feel how hard she could slap him, and he didn't want to do it again. His efforts obviously weren't good enough as she pushed him away and slapped him hard again. Slap and slap, spanking. Time and time again, Ethan failed, and Jessica had no choice but to slap him hard to encourage him to work harder. She gave him good advice in between slaps and reminders of what he did wrong. You're getting better at it. I can feel it, she told him. You just need to focus harder on what you're doing. Ethan tried again. This time he felt he was definitely getting better as they held that kiss for much longer. But finally, Jessica pushed him away and raised her hand, ready to slap him. Wait a second, he told her with a startled note in his voice. He never thought he would be afraid of being beaten by a woman. You know I have to do this, she told him. She swung her hand at him, but Ethan grabbed it before it reached his face and held her hand in place. She tried to do the same with her other hand, but Ethan grabbed that hand too and was very pleased with himself for stopping her. She spat in his eyes, feeling like she had no choice. He was so stunned by the move that he didn't realize he had let go of her hands and she slapped him again. "If you try to stop me from slapping you, I'll find other ways to motivate you," she said. Ethan picked up a napkin from the coffee table and wiped the saliva from his eye. "Okay, I can take it," he said. "I know you can. You were a lot better last time and lasted a lot longer before I had to slap you." They talked it over again, and Jessica tried to add some more tips to cheer him up. Ethan tried again, kissing her lips more tenderly and enjoying the softness of her moist lips. He moved it around a little as she suggested and tried to match her movements whenever he could. The kiss went on for so long that Ethan forgot what they were doing and just enjoyed it. Finally, she broke away from the kiss and smiled approvingly at him. "That was so much better. Not perfect, but better," she said. "How did it feel?" "I felt better this time," he replied, feeling very relieved that he didn't have to be slapped. "Comparing it to when I first started kissing you, I can see a big difference." Jessica suggested they kiss the same way again to make sure it wasn't just a fluke. Ethan did what he had done before and instinctively changed it to what he thought she might like. He was worried that the change would ruin the mood and he'd get slapped again, but apparently it worked because she was very into it. "Oh my God, I think you finally figured it out," she said excitedly. "Yes!" Ethan shrieked with joy, raising his hand in the air. "Let's do it again," but this time with the tongue. Jessica gave him some tips on his tongue work. Ethan kissed her again, just like before. When he decided he was ready, he slipped his tongue into her mouth and she pushed him away. Spanking. "Kissing was better, but your language skills seem to have gotten worse." She explained again what he needed to do with his tongue. He kissed her again, and when he was ready, he slowly slid his tongue into her mouth and moved it in circular motions, and she did the same to him. They did this for a while before she let him go. "That was great," she told him. "I only had to hit you once this time." "You're right, it was a good motivator. They did it again and again, and Ethan knew that that time must have been better because of how well she reacted to him. "Perfect," she told him. "Maria's going to love this." "Do you really think so?" "Trust me, she'll love it," Jessica assured him. "But I'm not sure how she'll react to your hand on the inside of her thigh." Ethan looked down and saw where his hand was, exactly as Jessica had described. "I'm sorry. I didn't even realize I was doing that," Ethan said, removing his hand. "It's okay. You just got a little carried away," Jessica said. "But we haven't gotten to that point yet. We need to play out the kiss perfectly before we move on to the next step, which is how you put your hands on a woman during a kissing session." "That shouldn't be a problem for me," Ethan said with a sly grin. "Are you sure about that? Because that's not what some of your exes have told me." The smirk on Ethan's face disappeared when he heard that. "Oh, shit," he replied. "Don't get me wrong. They had a lot of nice things to say about how good you are in bed," she assured him. "But the problem is exactly what you do with your hands when you kiss them. That's the problem." "Damn it, I can't believe it's taken me this long to get good at this," he said. "After hearing all this, I can't believe I've even had sex." "Don't worry. When it's over, you'll never have this problem again," she assured him. "We'll go over all of this tomorrow night, but right now, let's just kiss again and see how long it lasts." They could have ended right there and continued on to the next night, but Jessica just wanted to kiss him one more time before their time was up. Even though she was doing all of this to help Ethan, she was starting to enjoy it when he finally started to get the hang of it. She decided there was nothing wrong with having some fun while she was helping him. The next night, when Jessica came over, Ethan wasn't prepared for what he saw. When he opened her door, he saw Jessica standing there in a very sexy, short black dress that revealed most of her legs and cleavage. "Wow," he said with a surprised look. "What's the occasion?" "There's no special occasion," she told him as she entered his apartment. "I just thought this dress would be perfect for the next phase of your lessons." They sat down on the couch as they had done the last few evenings. Ethan had a couple beers ready for them, but seeing her in that dress, he felt he should offer her a martini cocktail if he had the ingredients to make one. "Just to be sure, are we talking about having my hands over or under the dress?" he asked. "Why do you think I'm wearing that dress?" she replied. If we're going to do this, you need to have better access to what you're going to be grabbing for tonight. I understand. Besides, touching a woman's body over her clothes is one thing, but probing her from underneath is an entirely different situation, she continued. In my own experience, men feel a woman in a completely different way when they have the opportunity to touch her skin. That's right, Ethan said. Now we will continue what we did yesterday. We're going to kiss the same way we did before, and this time you're going to move your hands all over my body, she told him. This time don't put your hands between my legs like you did last night. Ethan blushed slightly with embarrassment. I guess I shouldn't do that with Maria? He asked. At least not right away, she replied. Instead, what you should do first, before anything else, is to put your hand on the outside of her thigh and rub it gently. Girls are sensitive about their thighs, and by paying attention to it, you'll show her that you like her body the way it is. Then slowly move your hands to her butt and rub it gently too. After a while, you can squeeze her ass, but not too hard. Ethan had a hard time remembering a lot of information, but he tried to memorize as much as he could. They put their arms around each other as they started kissing. When he was ready, he put his hand on her thigh and started rubbing it. Spanking. Ethan was so excited about today's lesson that he forgot about the positive punishment method Jessica used. I said rubbing, not making me rub the skin down to the meat on my thigh, she snapped at him. The kisses were great, and I'm glad to see you haven't forgotten my lessons. Let's try it again. And this time, when you get to my thigh, be gentle. Again, after kissing her, he moved his hand to her thigh and stroked it more gently. Seeing him do this, he realized how much better it felt to feel her thigh this way. When he was ready, he slipped his hand under her dress and felt her ass. He held it there for a while. He always thought she had a nice ass, and he liked the way it felt in his hand. He squeezed it lightly, and then Jessica pushed him away, and he was ready for what was about to happen. Spanking. You did pretty good with your hip, but I felt like I should press assault charges for the way you grabbed my ass, she told him. I said, squeezing it gently. He did it over and over and tried not to squeeze her ass too hard. He was sure he did well this time because she didn't want to slap him. That was great, she told him with a wide smile. But you got to my ass too soon. Next time, just wait a little longer. It might be tempting, but it will do more good in the end. Okay, I will. And next time, don't squeeze my ass so hard, she said. Some women like that, but not far from everyone. How do I know if a woman likes to have her ass squeezed too hard or not? Honestly, I don't know, she replied. You'll just have to determine that by how she reacts. But let's try it again. They kissed again, but it was over quickly because Ethan put his hand on her ass too quickly. Spank. 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 He made another attempt, this time really concentrating, and this time he took his time before he reached for her ass, and this time squeezed it gently. That was so much better, she said. I know it's a lot to remember, but you're definitely getting there. Thank you, Jessica. You're welcome, she replied with a wide smile. Now let's see how you grab a woman's breasts. We'll go from thigh to ass and finally to breasts. Now I know it doesn't have to be in that order, Ethan said. Yes, it's always different for every woman. Some don't mind if you go straight to her breasts. Sometimes I don't mind it myself, but just for the purposes of these lessons, we'll do it in that order. And you don't mind if I feel you like this? Ethan asked. You're not the first guy to fondle me, and you probably won't be the last, she answered. They kissed for a while, and Ethan did the right thing with her thigh and then her ass, this time caressing her ass a little longer. Then he moved his hand upward to her breasts. He pulled the shoulder strap down off her shoulder and pulled down part of her dress to expose just one breast. He was a little excited at this point because even when they had briefly dated in college, he had never been able to run his hands under her shirt, and he always wondered what it would be like. He put his hand on her chest. She was gorgeous. He felt it the same way he did with other women, and that's when she pushed him away, this time much harder than usual. Slap, slap, slap. Apparently, Jessica was so shocked by the way he groped her breasts that she had to slap him twice, one with each hand. Please tell me that this is not how you normally touch a woman's breasts, she screamed, pulling up the strap of her dress again. Yeah, why? Is there a problem with that? Ethan asked. Yes, there is a problem, she snapped at him. You squeezed her too hard. I felt like it was about to burst like a water balloon. I didn't realize it was that hard. Well, it was, she replied. I hope I don't have a bruise on my chest now. I'm sorry, I had no idea I was so bad at it. Listen to me, she started to say. Sometimes a girl really likes to have her breasts squeezed hard, but not that hard. Proceed the same way you did with the ass. You have to do it carefully. After a while, you can squeeze you harder, but only a little. Now do it again. They started again, and when he was ready, he grabbed the same breast again. Spank, spank. After a few tries, he was sure he knew what he was doing. When he was ready, he was more gentle this time, giving her a soft massage. He could tell by the way Jessica reacted that he did better this time. He decided to give her a good squeeze, but not too hard this time, and she liked it. It was wonderful, she said happily. I'm glad you liked it, Ethan said, boosting his self-esteem. We're going to do it again, and this time don't be afraid to pinch your nipple a little, but again, not too hard. He did as she told him as he got to the nipple again and pinched it lightly, even pulling it slightly. He could tell by the way she was breathing heavily as they kissed that it was really turning her on. That was amazing, she said after she pulled away from him. I have to say, you're more than ready now. Really? Yeah, honestly, she replied. If you remember all of this with Maria when you two finally meet, I guarantee she'll have a great time. Thank you, Jessica. You've been a great help to me. They hugged each other tightly. When they pulled away from the hug a little, Ethan looked intently into her eyes and thought he sensed something. He leaned in for a kiss and she threw her head back. What are you doing? She asked. I'm sorry, he said. I'm sorry, Ethan. I enjoyed all of this as much as you did, but they were just lessons, she told him. I was just trying to help you, that's all. Feeling very uncomfortable, he moved away from her on the couch. I'm sorry about that. I hope I didn't ruin anything between us. There's no need to apologize, she said. I guess with everything we've been doing the last few days, it just got to you, that's all. It hit me a little too. So we're good then? He asked. Of course I'm okay, she assured him and hugged him. If I stopped being friends with the guy who was hitting on me, I wouldn't have any guy friends. Except Michael, Ethan said. With him too. He hit on me years ago, even before he met Susan, she replied. He wasn't as gallant about it as you were. They both laughed heartily at that. Ethan brought them more beer, and they spent some time just laughing and watching TV. Later, when it was time for Jessica to leave, she asked if he could at least kiss her one last time since it would be their last kiss. He kissed her at the door, and it went on for quite a while. By the time it was over, Jessica felt a thrill. Maria will be one lucky girl, Jessica said before leaving. The next day, Jessica received word from Susan that Ethan had finally asked Mariah out, and she had turned him down. She asked Susan what had happened, and she told her that, according to Michael, who had seen the whole thing, everything had been going well when they had been talking at the bar, but she had just said no. Later that day, Jessica showed up at Ethan's apartment. He let her in and got them both a beer, as usual, and they went to the couch to talk. So what happened? Jessica asked. I thought she liked you. I thought so too, he replied. But apparently I'm not her type. What? You're a very handsome and muscular man with a great sense of humor and a good, steady job. What exactly is her type? Someone like you, he told her with a wide smile on his face that bordered on laughter. Actually, she wanted to know if you were dating anyone and if I could introduce you to her. Jessica's jaw dropped at this stunning revelation. All this time, she had been helping her friend get his confidence back and making him a better kisser, all to get him to sleep with Maria, the hot bartender, only to find out that she had been a lesbian all along. So, what am I supposed to tell her? She seems really nice. You two might get along. Ethan started laughing while Jessica looked embarrassed. "Stop laughing, it's not that funny." "Oh, it's very funny." A moment later, Jessica couldn't help herself and started laughing too. "I can't wait to tell Susan about this," Jessica said through her laughter. "She'll be so jealous that Maria wants me more than her." This caused more laughter from both of them. It took a while, but eventually they calmed down and drank their beers. "I guess it's too bad you couldn't use the lessons I gave you," Jessica said. "That's okay. I can still use them with the next woman," Ethan replied. "Probably tonight." Saying that, he looked intently at Jessica, and she realized what he was talking about. "Ethan, please, we talked about this. That's not why I gave you these lessons." "Stop it," he replied. "It might not be the reason, but in the end, it was more than just lessons. Don't deny that nothing happened between us all this time." She thought for a moment about how to answer and took a sip of her beer. "Okay, yeah, I felt it too," she replied. "I just wasn't sure if we really had it, or if it was just our hormones going crazy with everything we were doing in those classes." Ethan set his beer on the coffee table and scooted closer to her on the couch. "I suggest we test this," Ethan said. "Let's call it a final exam. We do everything you've taught me the last few days and see if it was just lust or if it's really about us." Jessica set her beer down next to his and looked intently into his eyes. "If you fail, I'll slap you again," she said. "But if you pass, well, we can talk about your graduation." "My graduation?" he asked. "The ceremony will be held in your bedroom." They wasted no time pouncing on each other like animals. They did everything they had practiced the past few days and more. She was very impressed with what he was doing as he ravaged her body. They had never discussed what to do in this situation, but she was glad he didn't need any lessons in that area. "Congratulations, you passed the exam. Now let's go to your graduation ceremony." "I'll present you with your diploma," he whispered in her ear. "But I'm a teacher. I have to give you your diploma," Jessica said. Ethan pulled away from her. "I think we need to stop trying to have any sexual conversations. It's not working for me," Ethan said. "I agree, it's not necessary," Jessica replied. "Just take me to your bedroom and fuck me." Ethan thought she had gone too far with the teacher's jargon, but left it at that. He picked her up in his arms and carried her to his bedroom. She thought it was pretty sexy when he was able to pick her up and carry her in his big, strong arms. He laid her on his bed, where they fondled each other some more and ripped off the rest of each other's clothes until they were both completely naked. They cuddled against each other, trying to relax and catch their breath. "Fucking amazing," Jessica said. Ethan pulled the blanket over their naked bodies and went to bed. The next morning, they had breakfast in his kitchen, still naked. It really made it easier for them to make love on his kitchen table. After that, they finally got dressed. "So what are we going to do next?" Jessica asked. "I was hoping to take you out on a real date tonight, unless you have plans with Maria," Ethan joked. "Hey, I'm not a lesbian, but she's super hot, so I'm willing to give her a chance," she said, kissing him lightly. "So you better start wooing me right now, since I know I have better options." They dated that night and almost every night for several months before Ethan asked Jessica to move in with him. They had decided to get a bigger apartment with an extra bedroom since they found out they were going to be parents soon.